It's Miami versus Florida State week, but I don't think that's the biggest game in the ACC this weekend.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We will talk about the top Week 9 games this weekend in the ACC. We'll talk about the Florida State curse. I think it's going to live on. There was some fraud committed over the weekend. ACC Players of the Week, including NC State, I believe, now having their quarterback. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. And, okay, so obviously, Kenton, if Florida State can find a way to beat Miami on Saturday, that would obviously turn the top of the ACC standings upside down. But the Seminoles are 21-point dogs for a reason. I think the game, to me, that's the biggest one in the conference is happening on Thursday night between 5-1 Syracuse at number 19 Pitt, because I feel like Pitt's 6-0 record might turn into 6-1 this Thursday night.
You know, that's very possible. I've got Pitt winning this game, but I'll tell you, that game does have a ton of relevance to the conference because both of those teams, whether we realize it or not, are at or near the top of the conference. Right now, Clemson is the only team that has a decided advantage over everybody else because they played 5 conference games. And they're the only ones who have played that many conference games and won a good amount of them. There are other teams that have played that many. I'm looking at you, Florida State. I'm looking at you, Georgia Tech. But neither one of those teams is anywhere in that same stratosphere in terms of overall wins. So, with that in mind, you're absolutely right in terms of Syracuse and Pitt. You're looking at 2 teams that walk into this. Pitt 2-0 in conference, Syracuse 2-1 in conference. This could go a long way to deciding some major things in the conference. And nobody's respecting Pitt right now. Pitt is the Rodney Dangerfield, not just of the ACC, but of the nation. Everybody's saying they're frauds. They've got nothing. They've beat nobodies. They're just a no-man team in a professional stadium that ain't theirs and all that. What are they going to do about it? What is Pitt prepared to do about the disrespect?
Yeah, and I believe this is the toughest team that they will have faced so far this season, and they do have the home field advantage. So if Pitt does come away from this one victorious, I'm going to start giving them more respect. I think the reason why I'm giving Syracuse a little bit more respect right now, Kenton, is I know they have the one loss, which was not a quality loss to Stanford. I still kind of wonder how Stanford got that done. But at the same time, Syracuse has beaten already 2 teams on their schedule that were ranked at the time that they faced them. A nice road win against UNLV. They had I think it was a home win against Georgia Tech, who was ranked at the time number 21. UNLV, I think, was ranked number 25 at the time when Syracuse beat them. You know, we're both big fans of Eli Holstein, but at the same time, he still is a freshman. And Kyle McCord has that extra experience, having come from a big program like Ohio State. He's playing a lot better at Syracuse than he played at Ohio State. And Holstein's about 360 yards behind Cam Ward for number 2 in ACC passing so far. So it's just one of those things where I think it's going to be a close game. I wouldn't be shocked if Pitt wins, but I think for a team that's 6-0 playing with house money in Pitt, I think Syracuse might get it done. That's it. And I think the 6-point spread in Pitt's favor is probably a little bit too much. I think this should be more of a field goal type of game.
I agree. I think I believe Syracuse covers. I believe that Pitt wins the game. Now, here's the thing. I've already admitted I was wrong about Kyle McCord. He's lighting it up. He's lighting the world on fire. I mean, you know, we knew about Gaston, Pena, Meeks. We knew about Allen. That group is balling. They are getting it done on a ton of levels, and that cannot be denied. But with that being said, there's something about this Pitt team. There's something about the way that they've rallied around each other and said, FIBU, forget everybody but us. And normally when you say that, the first word is not forget. It's a word that rhymes with duck. But it's a moment in time for this Pitt team where I feel like I'm not going to bet against you until I see you have a letdown moment, until I see you have a game where there's the Pitt that we were all expecting. Because I've seen it many too many times. You've expected somebody to be a certain way, and that's just not who they are. We expected coming into this season. Florida State was the favorite in all of their first 5 or 6 games. Quick question, Dono. How many of those games did they win?
Just Cal. Cal was the only that was the only game where they've covered a spread all season or won.
So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight to start off where you're favorited, and you lose all of them except one. And I believe Duke was favored against them. So I believe that the nation, the bettors finally caught on and said, all right, frauds, no more fraud alert here, but you get the point. I'm not going to hold against Pitt, who we thought they were. I'm going to embrace them for who they actually are.
Now, okay, so on Saturday, and I want everyone to remember the Pitt Syracuse game is Thursday night, so we don't have to wait long for that one, which I love. We also have Friday night football this week, Battle of 4 and 3s, Louisville on the road at Boston College. Let's talk a little bit about number 6 Miami hosting Florida State on Saturday at 7:00. Miami are 21-point favorites now in that game, Kenton, and it's one of those things where, on the one hand, it would not surprise me if Florida State plays their best game of the year because of the rivalry. This is one that they've circled on the calendar all season long. On the flip side, though, if Miami has the opportunity, and I'm not guaranteeing they will because all of Miami's last 3 games have been super close, but if Miami has the opportunity to run up the score, I don't think they'll hesitate to do that, KG, because the last time Florida State came down to Hard Rock Stadium, they demolished the Canes in 2022, 45-3. And Mario Cristobal said after that game, he was asked about, are you upset that they ran up the score? He said, absolutely not. But someday the shoe's going to be on the other foot, he said. And that might happen on Saturday.
Let me tell you something. Allegedly, no 3-2-1 or 1-2-3, whoever the guy is, has fulfilled the prophecy. He has closed the loop, allegedly, on what he said.
I can debunk that here in a second if you'd like me to.
It's a fake? It was a fake, Dono?
Yeah, hold on. I got something for you here. Let me for those who are listening to the audio version, I will read this. For those watching the video version, it's a lot of words. You would probably still prefer me read it. I'll make it easy on you. So it was a fake, Kenton, and it wasn't even Noel 321. It was somebody else who was basically saying, I will take it upon myself to eat the dog poo and break the curse. He sent a video to the Barstool Seminoles page, but the video was a fake. Let me read this statement. He says, hello, everyone. I want to clear the air about the video posted on October 19th. Over the past few days, I have received backlash. This is a user, DJ Ventura, who claimed he was going to break the curse for 321 Noel. I have received backlash for the shock and discomfort that the video brought to many people. I feel the need to clarify that the video was staged for humor and is fake. I love how he tries to take all the heat off of himself by saying the intent of the video was to bring attention to the unhoused community in Tallahassee and raise money to help. Well, I hope you raise some money because, you're obviously trying to divert the attention away from your own fraud. He says, I appreciate the reactions and donations to the GoFundMe. The donations will still go towards buying winter supplies for the unhoused community. He says, I realize that my digital footprint is lasting. I never expected my tweet or the video to be believed by so many people or cause any discomfort. As many have pointed out, the video was in fact edited, and the fecal matter that was picked up was swapped with chocolate. I regret deceiving so many fans and students of Florida State. And we are a strong community united over our shared love, pride, and dedication for our school. Thank you for understanding. And go Noles, he said. So listen, I'm glad he raised money for what sounds like a worthy cause, but the football gods are not going to forgive him for that. You can't fake that. Florida State will be punished for this.
I need to quote Metallica here. And it comes to be that the soothing light at the end of your tunnel was just a freight train coming your way.
Coming your way.
Because that's what Florida State does not have a single quarterback on the roster that has a positive or one-to-one touchdown to turnover ratio on the team. They don't have a single one. Okay. And then you say to yourself, well, Miami's coming up, but it should get a little easier after that. I would very strongly disagree. The back half of this schedule is much tougher than the beginning half. You play Miami this week, right? The week after that, after you probably are going to get shellacked, taken to the woodshed, embarrassed a little bit. You've got the Dirty Foot Club, also known as UNC, after that. Hey, you've got a shot. And then you're going to Notre Dame.
Well, that's going to be rough.
And then you got Charleston Southern, nice little bounce back game. And somehow, people are now arguing that Billy Napier may keep his job and that DJ Lagway may save his job. Again, that soothing light at the end of the tunnel was a freight train all along. It was, and we all knew that the back half of their schedule was going to be tougher, but at least we thought the curse would be broken by this guy doing the thing.
Yeah. You
have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, and led astray. Because Noles fans, there is no relief coming your way.
Well, maybe at least in the long term, there's going to be relief coming to NC State fans because I strongly believe the Pack have found their quarterback of the future. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. I'm so glad we have this awesome partnership with Roy, and it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pooled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, we're supporting CJ Bailey, quarterback of the future, and right now the quarterback of the present for NC State, who led a big comeback win. We just pitched in $100. We'd love for you to join us. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show CJ Bailey the love and keep him connected to NC State. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets up your team for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return_on_you for more info. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure to make our other shows. Kenton, I'm sure he and Grayson have been talking a lot about CJ Bailey this week. They host Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. All right, so Kenton, entering that fourth quarter with a 13-point deficit, CJ Bailey, who's getting his baptism by fire, was not supposed to start games this year as a true freshman. He leads touchdown drives of 75 yards and 80 yards to ultimately win that game against Cal. He's been showing positive signs all season long. And, man, is he getting a jump start on his second year for next year. So I love what I'm seeing.
Oh, you and me both, and all of Wolfpack Nation. There has not been a time other than that last throw against Wake Forest where you would say, man, this is just unbearable ball from him. He has shown up in a major way, and no shade to anybody else, but he has shown that he is capable and willing to let it fly. He has shown, hey, I may put the ball in harm's way at times, but damn it, I'm going to let my playmakers make some plays, which by and large has been NC State's strength all year. That pass catching group has been phenomenal in almost every game. I can't remember looking back at a game and saying, man, that group failed us at multiple points. They let us down at every point. So, you know, just the idea of I'm going to trust Wesley Grimes on 50-50 ball. I'm going to trust Joe Lee. I'm going to trust Kevin Concepcion. I'm going to trust these guys to do what they need to do. Welcome to Hollywood is now turning it into Rollywood Smothers. This is a good group. This is a great group of pass catchers and of skill position guys surrounding them, and they're lifting them up. They're making it easier. They're building that confidence. It's honestly so amazing to see, because I was so tired of seeing these one-year rentals come through Raleigh. I was so tired. First it was Brennan Armstrong 2 years ago. Then it was last year. And now it's Grayson McCall. But again, I hope he recovers well. I hope whatever is going on there in terms of the concussion, all that, it clears up and allows him to do whatever he feels like is best for his future going forward. But CJ has been a star, and that is your quarterback going forward.
And that's a nice win to get to propel you into the bye week. So NC State has the bye week. Clemson is another team on bye this weekend. Another big game in the conference, Kenton, we hadn't touched on yet. You've got 22nd ranked SMU on the road at Duke. Now Duke is 6-1. Their only loss coming to Georgia Tech in a relatively close game, and yet SMU, they've been really impressive this year, Kenton, but are they 11-point favorites on the road at 6-1 Duke impressive? Is that too big of a spread? Because this is another one that I look at and I'm like, man, I feel like SMU should win that. 11.5 points actually now. Is that I thought that would be single digits.
And the most interesting thing about this, we talked about Pitt and Syracuse as being one of the more important games in the conference. This is also one of those games because a combined conference record of 5-1 between these two teams. Yeah. SMU obviously 3-0, Duke 2-1. I'm going to tell you this. I think that Syracuse wins. I think that Duke covers. I think SMU that SMU wins and Duke covers. And again, y'all know how I feel about SMU. Phenomenal. Jennings has been a star. He has shown I'm not just a guy. I'm the guy. I am him. And the wide receiving core that we talked about before the season started, in terms of SMU has the best group of returners in the conference. They're showing. They are objectively showing, hey, we are the baddest boys on the block. All we need you to do is get us the ball and get the hell out the way. However, Duke is playing swarming defense. Yeah. They are all over the place. They have a run game that kind of smothers you. It makes the game shorter because they're a team that's willing to 3-yard in a cloud of dust you to death. And so when you see that, you're looking at a team, very serious operation there. I'm not sure if Duke has the talent, man for man, to win that game, but I think they do have enough to keep it close. And I'll tell you what a job by Manny Diaz. This is a career resuscitating job at Duke so far, because we all thought Manny Diaz is on the rise. He's going to be a rising star in the coaching ranks. He's going to be a guy that could be the heir apparent to some of these greats coming along. And lo and behold, he goes to Miami, doesn't look like that, gets his block knocked off to some degree, and everybody's like, oh, maybe he's just a great defensive coordinator, and that's it. This is a great job by him. Phenomenal.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're going to find out what Duke is made of, because this is another one of those situations, the same way if Florida State can find a way to upset Miami, you would be, not knocking down the team that is, tied at the top of the standings. Duke has the same opportunity because
the fighting Red Lash is going to get knocked off. The fighting Red Lash is going to get knocked off.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying Manny Diaz has that opportunity. That if we were to come out of this weekend, if Duke can pull off the home upset against SMU, and if Florida State could pull off a road upset against Miami, the conference is going to be turned completely upside down, and Clemson during their bye week will just be smiling down on everybody. So this is I think I'm with you. I think I see SMU winning, maybe not covering, but I see SMU winning. I do see Miami beating Florida State for so many reasons. I mean, FSU, they can't get out of their own way. When they're not throwing interceptions, they are rarely throwing really good passes. They get dropped by their wide receivers, execution. Like Florida State's been an absolute mess. Again, I think they'll probably play their best game of the season against Miami, but I don't think it's going to be nearly enough. So I don't think I see any huge shakeups at the top of the standings, but we've seen crazy games in college football this year. There's a reason why we play the games. And I want to talk about the players of the week when we come back. And that's more love for CJ Bailey. It's love for Cam Ward, who had another great game for the Hurricanes, and so many others. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And I already know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel. Guys, we talk about these spreads. Is the spread too big in the SMU Duke game? Is the spread too big in the Miami Florida State game? Miami favored by 3 touchdowns in that one. You can check out all these numbers and place your wagers on America's #1 sports book, and that's FanDuel. And NFL fans, if you haven't gotten in on the action yet, you can start your season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does an awesome job, and Kenton Gibbs on the 3 and Out show does a fantastic job as well on Locked On College Football, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so quarterback of the week, winning it for the 5th time this year, is Miami's Cam Ward, and he did not a perfect performance. I thought he maybe missed a couple throws in the first half, but 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, Kenton. So I thought it was the cleanest game that Ward has played all season long. So, I mean, I think it was his 3rd lowest Pro Football Focus grade of the year, but they're not always right. To the eye test, I thought it was his best game of the season.
Yeah, and not only was it the best game of the season, according to the no turnover part of it, but it looked like he played within himself more so than any other game. Every other game, it felt like he was playing hero ball, like, I have to win it. I have to be the one to make this great decision and be perfect in this moment and scramble around and make something happen. In this game, he knew when to take sacks. He knew when to say, you know what, this moment ain't necessarily it. And I want to say there was one pass that I thought, that should have been picked off. And that's it, which is great from Cam Ward.
Which was saved by his tight end, Elijah Arroyo, turned into a defensive back in that moment and batted it down really nicely.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, that's kind of part and parcel of the gig when you have a quarterback or when you have an offense that is who they are and a defense that, with all due respect to Ruben Bain and company, they got some things they need to figure out. They got a lot to figure out on that defensive side of the ball because this team looks like a team that is playoff bound, but it looks like they're going to be one game, spank that baby, put them to sleep, and go on to bed because, I mean, you've got to come up with stops in the playoff to get where you want to go. And hell, even before the playoff, you've got to come up with stops to beat a Clemson, to beat a SMU. You've got to do it. And I don't think a race to 60 is the game you want to play with a lot of these teams that are going to make the playoffs. So, again, Cam Ward is Cam Ward. Phenomenal. Great job. I don't give a damn what PFF said. The boy looked good to me.
Yeah, and I agree. I co-sign on Miami's defense. Of course, people who listen to Locked On Canes know that they've had some issues. Now, Miami actually had another player taking weekly honors, and I'm really happy for Sam Brown, Miami's receiver, because he had some inconsistent performances, some not so good games this year. He was fantastic. 3 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. Had a 49-yard reception. Had a 59-yarder where he broke like 3 tackles in Louisville secondary on the play. So congratulate, Sam Brown, he deserves it. But you know what's funny, or maybe not so funny because I feel bad for this guy. The top receiver in the ACC in terms of yardage is Xavier Restrepo on Miami, 686 receiving yards this year. You know how many times he's been named ACC Receiver of the Week?
None.
Same as me. Just how does that happen? I mean, he's been so good, and I'm not saying he deserved it this week, but how is this man in 7 games? He's not been ACC Receiver of the Week even once. He's first in yardage, second in touchdowns. So I'm very surprised by that.
I think the thing that happens with him is he is so good that his constance is just who he is. But also, he's had really good games. We haven't had one yet that's that's the Xavier Restrepo game. We're going to look back at that game and say, if you had to say, give me one game to show me the best receiver in Miami history, give me an argument for Xavier Restrepo, you play this tape, we haven't seen that game from him yet. With all due respect. And some of these other guys have put on that game for their teams in different weeks. Not saying that Xavier Restrepo has never deserved it, not saying he's never had a case for it, But I'm just saying, if we're looking at plausible reasons for why he hasn't won it, that could definitely be one.
Now, someone who did just have their signature game was Bhayshul Tuten, the running back from Virginia Tech. 226 yards. Like they put Boston College into the meat grinder with the way that they played. Well, let me pull up some of Tuten's other stats from that game. Yeah, it was a Virginia Tech single seat. I think I said 226. It was 266. Virginia Tech single game record in rushing. Averaged 14.8 yards per carry. He's got 14 touchdowns this season, which is quite incredible given that they're 7 games into their season. So yeah. For Tuten, that was a signature game. We'll see. I don't know if he'll have another game that big this year, but wasn't his first great performance this season.
No, Bhayshul Tuten he looked like a man amongst boys. It looked like everybody's feet were in mud except his. He was a pinball when it came to guys trying to tackle him. And Lord forbid, in terms of could you catch him, if he was even, he was leaving. He was packing his things and saying, you know what, I've had enough of this defense. I'm out. And he did so multiple times. I mean, he carried the mail into the end zone because great job by the Virginia Tech offensive line. But at a certain point, when you're breaking off 80-yarders and whatnot, it has to be you making things happen on the second level, along with some good blocking receivers. See, everybody can block it perfectly. But even then, it's 11 on 11. Somebody has to be made to miss. And even after that, somebody has to have not just their ankles, but their angles broken, which was something he did regularly. It's like, oh, that defender's got an ankle. No, they don't. No, they do not. Goodbye. See you later.
And it was a big weekend for Virginia Tech in terms of weekly honors because they had 2 others. They had Xavier Chaplin named Offensive Lineman of the Week. You would figure with a 266-yard rusher that somebody on the offensive line would get it. And APR, Antoine Powell Ryland, defensive lineman. So Duke had 3 guys taking weekly honors. And then, there are a few others, but I want to make sure we mention ACC Rookie of the Week. 2 straight weeks. It doesn't go to Eli Holstein. This time it goes to CJ Bailey of NC State, and well-deserved.
Eli Holstein is somewhere shaking, crying, and throwing up right now. I know that's what's going on, but I want to talk about APR for a second. He had a 4-sack game, right? 4 of those things.
4.
This wasn't his first 4-sack game of the season.
Oh, it was? I didn't even realize. Oh, yeah, he had one early in the year.
ODU. He had one against ODU. That brother can get to the quarterback like nobody's business. He can get to the quarterback. I'll tell you what, when you look at what Virginia Tech did in this game, of course, it's a full team effort. But every now and then, even in a full team effort, you look and say 1 or 2 guys, everybody's role can't be the star. Everybody can star in their role. But guess what? APR and Bhayshul said, oh, no, we are the stars today. We are the stars. We're going to do the damn thing today. So, phenomenal job by them. And, of course, CJ Bailey, my boy. Number 16 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. He is QB1 in Raleigh until he decides he doesn't want that job anymore or until he ages out of it. He has looked better and better each week. And that's insane to think about because you're looking at an 18-year-old. You're looking at a kid that was slow dancing at virtual prom not too long ago, probably holding an iPad of his girlfriend or something like that. I don't know if they're back to doing regular. I don't know if they're back to doing regular or not. I don't know.
I think they're back to doing regular by now. He's not class of 2020.
My bad. Uncle a little old. I don't know what the high school kids are doing, but the young man was slow dancing at prom a few months ago, and now all of a sudden he's leading double-digit comebacks. I mean, what more can you say about the man? He's phenomenal. And I'll tell you this, although NC State's receivers have played well, if they could come up with 1 or 2 more dynamic catches per game, his stats would go through the roof because he's thrown some absolute darts where you're like, that's an NFL catch. Make no bones about it. That's an NFL catch. But if that guy comes up with that, all of a sudden you start to see those ridiculous stat lines.
So congrats to all the ACC Player of the Week honors. And we got more big shows coming up this week, including the squad on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit more Week 9 storylines on Wednesday with you guys. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that thumbs up button. Be sure to subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.